Hello people, welcome. We have some comments. Can you add an option to switch back to old icons at home? I don't know what you mean by that comment. What old icons and how does it differ to be at home or anywhere else? So please expand your comment, but in the meantime I'd like to look at the future version of the icon editor and compare it to the old version. I have the old version here. So the first thing that is different is the main icon. I will probably work a bit more on the new one, but the old one will be definitely out. And in the future, the support for 3D will not be in the base icon editor. Instead, there will be a new application or maybe an old application, depends on how you look at it. It was the first application that was available on the RealWorld Designer website, and it was called RealWorld Designer. And I quickly found out that calling your icon editor RealWorld Designer is a bad idea, because people don't know that it is actually an icon editor and do not expect that. So I later renamed it to RealWorld Icon Editor. But in the future, the designer will also be able to create cursors. So it will be everything that you can do with any of the RealWorld application will be in there in the editors. So you will be able to create 3D models like in this old icon editor. You will be able to create icons, and you will be able to create cursors and use 3D layers in normal images, cursors and icons. Let's quickly look at the comments. The icons in 2013. You mean the icons inside the application? No, you will not be able to use the old icons, and that is because these old icons are classic icons. That means that there are multiple images in different sizes, 16 times 16, 32 times 32, 48 times 48 by default. And for example, these are 48 by 48 images. And if you look at this newer version, you can see that these are actually a bit bigger, and the same applies to these icons. That is because I am running this Windows on 125% resolution of the display, and that means that if you multiply 48 pixels times 1.25, you get, this is probably, well, what it is, 48 times 1 to 25, I'm lazy, 60 pixels. So these are 60 pixels big, and in the new version I'm using vector shapes and compute these images on the run, and therefore I'm able to support any resolution. The modern 4K displays are often run at 150 or 200%, and the new icons will be sharp on them, but the old one will be too small or blurred. So there is no going back to the old icons. Sorry. There may be eventually some settings that will allow you to tweak the colors or maybe the intensity of the outlines for these new icons, but it's not priority number one. So this new icon editor will not support 3D, but on the other hand it will be free. And this icon editor will be released together with the new application or the old application, the RealWorld Designer, that will support 3D. And people who own the license for the current icon editor, that license will be valid for the new RealWorld Designer. So let's look at some changes. Let me open an image in the new version and create an icon from this image. Maybe compare it with this old version. I probably don't have anything. Let's grab. I'm not sure whether it will work properly. Designer. These are some designer logos, some concepts. This probably won't work, but we can try what happens. Let's see what happens. It won't open in the old version. I will need to let's get this picture. It's a small one, but it doesn't matter. So I have opened a picture in the old version, and I can create icon from this picture using this command. And in the old version you are probably used to seeing this image, and here you can configure what images what image sizes should be generated from this source image. It's a small image, so maybe do not include this large one, but include these standard sizes. You can control how, if you want to add an edge shadow, it already has one, so maybe do not add another. And you can choose whether you want to create Windows icon or Mac icon. So when you click OK, it will create an icon for you, and the icon here is just a container for multiple images, and you can edit individual images. So this is how it looks like in the current or old version. And in the new one, the first thing you may notice here is that here you can already choose what type of icon you can create, and if you just click on this button, then it will use the setting you have used the last time. So let's, for example, create a Windows 10 icon. Okay, when you look at this, you can see that the image that was opened here had multiple layers, also a layer group here, and that the icon that was generated from it, maybe switch to this style, the new style, just contains the image as it was in this, just contains the source image without any changes. That means that you, when you are creating images or icons, then in the past you had to store your images and then generate icons from it, because after you have generated the icon, you cannot work with the original image. Or if you change the original image, then you have to regenerate the icon and maybe redo all the changes you have made to the individual images here. So if you modify this image here, somehow it only affects this image, and the original is just as it was. And if I draw here, then I have to create the icon again, and it will create a new file from this modified source image. In the new version, this works differently. As I have already told you, this is just the source image as it was, without any changes. The layers are kept as they were. The size of the image was not modified in any way. And you can still work with it. If you are wondering why you see this shape here, it's because I have used a small trick here. You can see that this shape is behind this yellow shape, and this layer here is used to create the illusion that this green shape is behind the red shape, because none of these three shapes is actually on top. Maybe it's easier when I move just this one. The trick is used only for the red part. So I can modify this image. These are vector layers, and you can see the icon, the preview of the icon is generated as I modify the source image, and it applies the changes to all these icon images that are defined for the Windows 10 icon. Let me quickly check comments. Message incomplete. Chat disconnected. Phantom within. Hello. So this functionality was also available in the Icon Editor beta from 2016, but it was not in the official version. So I want to emphasize this. Here you can use, currently in this build, raster layers and vector layers. In the RealWorld Designer variant, you will be able to use 3D layers. And let's now quickly look at this portion of the window that shows you the individual images in the icon. You can see there are description 16 pixels, 24 pixels, 32 pixels, 48 and 255 pixels. And if you look closely, you can see that there is a subtle gray line going from the first picture to the last one, and that indicates that all these pictures in the icon are connected. That means that they only have a single source. It doesn't matter to what image I switch, this window and this source image remains the same. So when I do changes to it, maybe change the color, it will be like this. The changes in the color needs to be applied. So when I do changes here, you can see them on the preview, and I can include new pictures, and now add new pictures to the icon. Here are some pre-configured sizes, but I can add my own. For example, I can add a 60 pixels format, so it will be here 60 pixel icon. Another thing I can do, because sometimes it is necessary to make adjustments to only some of these images, because the the level of details you want on a large icon may be different than what you want on a smaller icon. Also, I can delete images from the icon, and the delete operation works just like all delete operations in the new Paint or Cursor editor. It's now unified, so when I select this 60 times 60 pixels image and press the delete key, it will be deleted. So what if I want to have a different picture for these two images, the 24 and 16 pixels images? I can select them. I can select them by holding Ctrl, or I can select them like this, and when they are selected, I can start dragging them, and you can see that the cursor changes to this picture, and that indicates that I want to split these selected pictures from these three. So when I release the mouse, you can see that the line here that was previously starting on the first icon and ended here is now ending here. So there are two lines, one from between these three images and another one between these two, and that means that there are now two source images for this icon. These small images have a separate source image. It is now copy. It is a copy of the original, because we have just, because it was the same image before, but now it's a copy of that image. And when I do changes to this image, like I did before, maybe get to this orange color. Okay, you can now see that these two images now are using red, yellow and orange, while these three are using the blue color. And for example, I may want to increase the outline for these small images to, let's say, 8 pixels. It's on multiple layers, this effect, so I have to change it for all these shapes, and also here. So now we have a different, maybe I should move this all a bit down because it's out of the canvas, but it doesn't matter now. I'm not sure whether you can see it on these previews, but these small icons now have much more intense outlines. and that is usually good for small images. So this way you can skip the intermediate step. You don't have to create an image, and when you are done creating an image, generate icons from that image. You can just start by creating a new icon, and you have full capabilities of the icon editor or of the normal image editor available here. You can use everything: vector layers, layer styles, 3D layers in the second application you will be able to use, and everything. And you have the icon previews, and you can see how your current icon looks, how the icon will look after you save it as .ico or in Mac format or whatever. One more thing, you can also switch the icon type while you are working on it. We have selected a Windows 10 icon, but if I switch to Windows 7 here, it will try its best to map my current file, the list of images, to what is predefined for Windows 7. And for Windows 7 I have sizes from 256. I have the sizes of 266, 48, 32, 24 and 16 pixels, but not only in 32 bits per pixel, but also in lower color depth. So there is, for example, this 16 colors version that was used in the old days, but you can still create icons with this color depth. And the only thing you need to do is just switch the icon type here, and I'm back to Windows 10 icon with just 32 bits per pixels. You have also old Windows XP icon, that is an icon without the large version. And you can switch to also these other kinds of icons, and each of these has some predefined list of images that is recommended for that operating system or type of icon. Also, what is included in these presets is what you can see here: properties of the icon. You can see that some of these images have additional shadow defined for them. In the old version, when you were creating an icon, it was possible to include shadow to make the outlines of the icon more, let's say, recognizable. Because if you had, for example, a white icon, and if that white icon were placed on a white background, you wouldn't see anything. So it's useful to have dark edges around your white icon to make it work on all backgrounds. So the same, this style was eventually abandoned by Microsoft, so You can see that the old icons usually have the outline shadow, but the new icons usually don't, and it is not always good, but that's today's style. So you can still control these settings for each of these individual formats. You can see that when I click on these formats, image formats, then these values here change. And when you use a different template, it will also change these presets. When you are working, you can also here use these other two settings. You can let the generator adjust the content size, and you can see when I enable this setting, the preview of the icon will change because the source image had some empty space around the edges. But if I want my icon to use all the available space, I can just click here, and then it will automatically crop the source image to so that the resulting icon will, the image and the picture on the resulting icon will be as big as possible, and this setting applies to all. You can see it on the previews for all these images, and by default it is set to 100%. But if I want for some reason an icon that, for example, is used as an overlay for other icons, I may, for example, type 50 here, and you can see that it will make the icon smaller, and I can also, for example, choose that I want the picture in the top right corner or wherever I want it. So again, this source image remains unaffected by the changes. This just affects how the final icon is generated. So this is the default. This should make it much easier for you if you want to quickly iterate on your designs. You can just try something, generate an icon, use it in your application or wherever you want to use it, and if you are not happy with it, you just adjust the source image and just save the icon in the format you need. Also, one more thing that's probably obvious, but when you click on save, it will save the icon as a layered icon file .ric, and only this format, of course, can preserve the layers and this connection between the images and these settings. When you save it as .ico, you will have just normal icon. I can show you what happens, or I can, it's not necessary, I think you can imagine that. Let me quickly check comments. Okay, what about real world photos? Are you going to add the FX button on the layer stack? It's pretty hard to go into image and to find the option or change the property of the effect again. You mean the icon that used to be here? I'm sure that whether it is in the old version. It's probably not in the old version. Let me read that comment once more. It's pretty hard to go into image and find the option or change the property of the effect. You mean it is hard to find the effect here? Oh, in the previous version of Paint and such, when you clicked on the FX button here, it opened a window where the list of the image effect was presented to you, and you could add or modify the list of the effects, and you still in the old version had to have had the right layer selected. In the old version in the new version you just have the list of the applied effect here, and you only need to expand it. I don't think that it is more complicated in the new version. I think it is less complicated in the new version. There are some downsides, I agree, but in general you can add a new layer effect faster, like this. It of course only applies. You can see how the automatic adjustment of the canvas size works in this situation. It will just do what it can to have to use all the space available. I think that this is faster. I don't think how the old FX button would help in this situation. And what about RealWorld photos? Well, what is the advantage of RealWorld photos these days? I don't think there is much of an upside to it. It has a simplified layout for quick image adjustment or quick image fixing, but that is just a configuration. And if you just use RealWorld Paint, then you can use or simplify or create your own simplified layer configuration. The other advantages that RealWorld photos had was batch processing, but you have batch processing in new RealWorld Paint, and it was able to losslessly modify JPEG images, or with minimal loss. If you only modified part of your photo, then the rest of the photo was not re-encoded and didn't lost quality. But you have this feature in the new RealWorld Paint as well. So I am afraid that the new RealWorld Paint is simply better in almost all aspects than the old in the current RealWorld photos, and it is also free. So if you are missing something in the new RealWorld Paint that was in the RealWorld photos, let me know. I know that it was not very smart from me to make the free application better than the old paid one, but well, if you want to pay for RealWorld Paint, send some donations, you can always do it. So there probably will not be a new version of RealWorld Photos because the new free RealWorld Paint is just better. And for people who bought RealWorld Photos in the past, that license will also apply to the new RealWorld Designer, so you will keep your advantage. So what else can we say about the new icon editor? Are there any questions regarding this style of icon creation? You can see that some of the icons here are not yet updated. I'm not happy with this, how this Android icon looks like currently. Maybe close this, and the icon for the icon is probably not yet final. I don't like that it is just white with black outline. I would like to have some color there. The functionality here is pretty similar to what was available in the old version. Icon for image. Picked an image and then so let's pick some image. So what can this be? Dark, something dark. So this is how it looked in the old version. You have some quick presets and this familiar dialog. In the new one, icon from image, we use this dark PNG. You can see that the configuration is simpler. There is no next step. You just choose from these two options, the icon type and whether to automatically remove background, and when you click here it will take you to this normal screen and you can switch the icon type later and all these properties of that we have demonstrated before. So it's simpler in the new version and more flexible. This just extracts icons from DLL files. It works exactly as the old version. This creates an icon library. Maybe open an icon library, because if you create one, I have some downloaded icon libraries here. Let's use for example this one. So this is the new version. Maybe open the same in the old version. You can see that this has changed a lot. In the old version you had a list of icons in the icon library here, and you could modify every icon in this raster editor. No layers or such, because the icon library doesn't support layers or vector shapes, so you only had this simple raster editor here, and you can't really do serious works unless you are a pixel artist using these tools. So in the new version this is focused on management. I'm not sure whether anyone even uses icon libraries these days. So there is no raster editor here. You can just look at the individual icons and you can remove them from the library. You can include new icons, you can add new icons to the icon library by, for example, dragging and dropping them from this sub-window or from your normal file manager. So this, and you can apply some effects on selected icons. I don't know, grayscale. Will it work? It will not work properly, probably. Only applied it on one image. Maybe I will. Let's try it on this one. Will it do anything? Grayscale. Yeah, it will apply it on this one selected image. So it should probably apply it on all the selected icons if possible. I will maybe fix this, but I'm not sure whether anyone even wants to do something like this. You usually only want to add or remove icons, and you can do that by just removing selected icons and either dragging and dropping them from the file manager or importing them here. You can even generate an image, generate an icon from an image and include it in the icon library. But I have personally never used icon library, so I don't really understand them. If anyone has some usage scenario, please let me know. Okay, no comments. So the image editor that is included with RealWorld Icon Editor is the same as the image editor in RealWorld Paint, or almost the same. You have this additional icon that allows you to convert the opened image to an icon. Okay, one more thing. There is this icon tab in the options, and it has two settings, I would say. This setting is only relevant to old icons. It's not checked by default because I'm conservative and I don't want to cause problems. If you are using 8 bits per pixels icon still, you probably are not using these because they are not needed anymore. But if you are using them and the actual icon has less than 256 colors, then it is not necessary to save the whole palette with this. If you are using only 20 colors, then it is not necessary to save the whole 255 colors, but usually they were saved in the past. If you check this, only the 20 colors will be saved in these cases. And here you can define your own custom presets for icons, and you can do it by creating a new icon, and maybe, for example, let me add this 20 pixels icon here, and I can now modify all these properties and maybe add even more images I'm interested in. And when you create this icon, it doesn't have to have any content, but just the definition of these formats, and save it as a layered icon. Then you can in the options import that saved file and rename it eventually, and later this will show in this list of presets. So if you are for some reason interested in creating icons that have, for example, 96 times 96 pixels, and you want to be quickly able to convert images to these icons, you can add this as your own custom icon template, and you can have definition whether to adjust content size, and if you want shadow added when the icon images are generated, and this is part of the icon template. So I think this will be all for today, and we will meet again in 3 weeks. If you have questions, so now is your last chance to type your questions. What about the icons for the software? Do you plan making them flat too? You mean these main icons? I think so. You can see here on my taskbar that I already have a flat version of this RealWorld Designer icon, the all-in-one application I have mentioned in this stream, and I think that this icon will be flat for the icon editor, and I may eventually redo the icons for the cursor editor and for RealWorld also, but they are almost flat already, so these will probably be very small changes. And of course I will keep remaking the icons that are here. For example, this icon is not flat, and you can see that it is a bit it is not looking good because it was zoomed from 48 pixels to 60 pixels by Windows, so the edges are not as they should be. And there are more icons that need to be redone, for example these ones, this overlay icon for an icon, and there are more. So last 15 seconds for questions, and then we will finish the stream. Also I want to mention that one of the users of the cursor editor found I would say important bug a few days ago. So there will be an update for the cursor editor, and it should update automatically for some of you who have the automatic updates enabled, but just know that if you currently create cursors with 64 or larger images and save them as normal cursors .ani or .cur, then after you open them, they will be there will be a problem with these. If you save them the first time, everything is fine, but when you open them and save them again, the 64 images, the larger images, will cause problems, and you will not be able to open that file again. To prevent this problem, just use the for now, before it's fixed, fixed. Just use .rcu, the layered cursor type, while you are working on it, and only export it to the Windows formats when you are finished. What about the website? Will you change the icons and the other stuff to be flat too? Well, eventually it all takes time, and changing the whole skin for the website will take it will take months, I think, because I want to give priority to the software right now. But there will be some changes to the web too, hopefully. Why do I see this chat disconnected so often today? Okay, so I think this will be all for today. So have a good time and see you again in 3 weeks.